3, 2, 1.
Alright, welcome back to Show Me Trucks. In this video, I'm going to keep working on the 36 GMC. So, if you've seen in here, I made the wood floors in here, but I made a template so that I could make a little cover, and then I'll make a little kind of boot out of the leather that I had for the seats. I just want to make this before I pull any of this out. Later on, I need to drill holes for the screws that are going to hold this down, and then I'm also going to make a little boot for the brake pedal and the steering column. That way I don't have to worry about air coming up through there or water or anything like that. And then now I'm going to cut it out of some metal I have around, and then clean all that up, throw some screws in it. Nothing crazy. I'd cut up that piece. This trim piece is already something that came with the truck. Now I need to cut a piece of leather. It kind of sucks that it has to open up, clear that, but I might do a double layer of leather and have the holes in different areas. That way I know that it's gonna seal up. So we'll see how that goes. I had to cut this opening, that way I can get it on at an angle. If you didn't want to do that, you could remove your steering wheel and your column drop and slide that all down from the top, but I didn't want to do that. I wanted it to be removable. If you didn't see, this is the shifter setup and then my emergency brake. So I made this one also, and then I'll have to make a double little boot cover for it. The same, I have some leftover leather from the seats. I'm gonna actually make a firewall side for this one too, just because I don't want you to be able to see any of that cut wood in there. I want it to be all real clean. So those are my only real big holes in here. I have some other ones that I can fill with grommets and stuff. Starting to button up the cab so that it's getting close to being done. Some of the leather I have from the seats. So I grabbed this piece, you know, try to use the least I can. So the seats look like this, but I like the back side of the leather, I think, for these grommets. So let's see how it goes. So this is the reason I did this. So it obviously cleaned it up, put the leather in there. Everything fits pretty good. This column is a little bit off center, and hopefully whenever I tighten it up, when I pull the engine, I'm gonna check all those bolts, tighten everything, Loctite, you know, and hopefully that pulls that to the side a little bit. The silver obviously is going to change. I'm gonna put that outside, let that rust up to kind of match the rest of the truck. Kind of like, I didn't paint this bottom piece that I made for the gas pedal mount and to hold the boards down. It just naturally rusted when my truck was outside. So I kind of want the rest to match, and then I'll sand down these flathead screws so that they match the same. I don't want anything real shiny in here. Whenever you push the brake pedal, it, like I said, it kind of stays in the same spot, so that doesn't really open up. And I did have to make a little slot underneath it, but because that piece is so close to the bottom, you don't really see it. When all that is rusty brown, it looks like it came from there. The only thing now that looks pretty out of place is that pedal is very new and black. But soon I'll be able to get the seat in. Getting the inside of this cab more buttoned up is the goal. So, yippee. Well, got done with the fun project. Now, not as fun project. I thought it'd be exciting, but it hasn't been so far. So, I need to figure out all the routing on this engine, okay? So, I'm having horrible issues with this water pump to the bottom. The top isn't gonna be an issue. The bottom, though, I'm gonna have to put 90 fittings on my water pump just to get this to run straight down. And then it's gonna dip underneath the engine mount, and then I'm gonna run them behind the headers, in between the headers and the starter, and then dump out right here. And then if you've been following along, it'll go up into the bottom of the cab under the seat. So that wasn't the biggest ordeal, but I didn't have my starter in place. I want to see how much room the starter takes up, and it just took forever to try to get it in place. It's tight. It's really tight, which kind of sucks. But whatever. Hopefully you don't have to replace the starter a whole lot. So I really wanted my coils tucked in here and run my wires hidden. And my issue is I have brake lines on that side of the frame where I was going to tuck it in. And then I also have brake lines on this side, but all my hoses run in here. And I don't want this truck to be the worst truck of all time to work on. So I think what I'm going to do is leave this space open. I think I'm going to make mounts to fit it up in the frame behind the steering box on that side, and then kind of behind where the headers are on this side, and run my wires up and over. Because my heater hoses are going to be going that way anyway, I can run those wires kind of up under the heater hoses so you don't see it also, which would be nice. There are some other hoses. My fuel lines are going to be running down, and I still got to run my transmission lines up in there. But I wanted my coils hidden. I know you could make a mount and mount it back behind and then run your wires down like a distributor looks. But I think I'm going to run a catch can back here, so I'm not going to do that either. And I am going to have an alternator up kind of higher here, so I could even put it like farther up here, kind of by the radiator. You won't totally see it unless you're really digging in, but this side is just the worst with the water pump low like that. I don't know. This is the struggle of tucking a big engine in one of these old trucks. Welcome back. Working on the coil packs. I made up these little brackets. I'm going to mount it kind of like that so you can see these tabs are offset, but the centers I'm going to line up. So I went ahead and drilled a center hole in my bracket. Obviously I need to make spacers. So I picked up this all thread, which is a 1024 all thread. Run those up, weld nuts to them, and then weld them to this tab. That way you can just like set your coils on, tighten up nuts, and leave it. So if you ever need to change it, it's not a pain. I do need some spacers, and they're pretty pricey. So what I did is I have some brake line, so I'm gonna cut my little spacers out of the brake line and try to keep all this cheap. Get all this mounted, and then once I figure out my other brackets for my alternator and figure out some of my other routing, I'll permanently mount these. So I might have to make a tab, either run it to the engine or to a cross member or something, mount those. And that's why I use some sturdier 1/4 inch. Basically, like I said, I got some all thread. This, I run it a little bit long and then tighten it in the backside. I just spot welded all these nuts in place. Obviously, this is not a high stress area, guys. They're spot welded. Once I get everything else in place, I will weld the nuts to the bracket, and then I will grind all these flush and then weld the back sides. That way it's all smooth. That way I can weld on any kind of additional mount that I'm gonna need. All these all threads. Let's try to run these the right way now. So it basically offsets all these. I'm sure there's a lot of different ideas if these are too close, the water getting to them, but like I said, this I'm sure will end up being kind of a show truck that doesn't end up driving in the rain, so I'm not that worried. But and then you just adjust your height this way. I want to make sure I got space in here, but also that these are sitting fairly flat. I just want them to look uniform, so I have about 3/4 threads out the top of the nut. About like there. Tighten these first, and then I can go back and adjust the height with the bottom. And I'm kind of leaving this one loose so that you can swivel everything around, but that's what I'm looking like. And we'll just go through and do all the rest. And if you're not dead on, just imagine you can move these a little and get everything to line up. But I just want to make sure nothing's touching. It's all got a little space. It doesn't look janky or anything. I like the idea of the airflow in between. Like I said, I don't know how hot your coils really get. They do sit on top of your engine when your engine's running, so I don't imagine the GM made them so that they overheat. But you'd be surprised. So there we go. That's what it's going to look like. So off camera, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here, spot weld all these, weld those, weld the back sides. Then I could take my coils out of the way, weld the rest of those. I just kind of want to tack it in place while everything's together.